I have a question to start the show today. I have a question about people to start the show today. But before I ask you a question about people, specifically people in hockey, many of whom you've probably wondered about, before I ask that question, I gotta ask Philly what's up with something. Who, by the way, did not play with Pavel Barber last night. He skipped out on you. Where was he going?
Columbus. I guess he's going out there for the outdoor game.
Right, of course.
Probably more important than...
They're doing like an influencer game again? They're doing an influencer game again?
Actually.
You didn't get the invite? Laz went and did it in Montreal?
No, I don't get those.
No, you don't get those.
No,
You'll get there. We got to get you that spot. Here's my question for you before I ask everybody a question about people. We have a show today. And we're going to talk a lot about Columbus. We're going to talk a lot about Detroit as well. In the meantime, I got to ask you two things. What's up with the feathers and what's up with the beard? Like, it's getting out of hand.
Okay, you're going to like this.
Like, you're lucky. By the way, you're lucky that like Lou Lamoriello doesn't run the shop here. Like, you'd be totally effed. You just look like a pink balloon on the show if Lou Lamoriello ran the shop. But dude, what's up with your feathers and your beard? It's out of control, pal.
I know. That's one thing I've always thought about. I'm like, I'm really lucky to have the job I do because I have this disgusting beard and a mullet. Like,
open door policy on ugly. Right this way, sir. Right this way. You have the table's been waiting for you.
Okay, ready? And I'm opening the doors for the chat to roast me and you because if you didn't think I was an idiot already, you will now.
Okay.
My men's league playoffs start tonight.
Oh, come on. You are not that guy. Are you serious, dude? Are you really
It gets the boys
serious?
fired up.
Your beard gets the boys fired up. I got news
It's
for
good
you.
luck. It's good luck.
Did you win last year? Did you win the whole thing? In beer league last year? Did you win the
No,
championship?
we went to the finals, actually.
Okay, so
we
you lost.
In a
You were first loser. Okay, did you have the beard?
Yeah, I did.
So it didn't bring you luck.
I guess not.
You know,
I did
like,
score a tying goal to send it to overtime in a shootout, though. So
you know,
personal
like
performance was there.
You know, like in the Stanley Cup playoffs when both teams don't touch the conference trophies, only one of them's going to say the superstition works. Yeah. You get that, right?
Yeah, it's true.
And they also don't have a problem putting on the championship hats. That's fine.
Yeah.
But touch the trophies? No. We're not here for the trophies. Oh, look at these hats. Oh, this is great. I want to ask everyone a question here about people. And I want to couch it this way. So I'm not going to say the name of this player, but this was the era before the prevalence of cell phones in junior hockey. Okay, this is a junior hockey player. I will whittle it down to a league. This is in the Quebec League. Okay, and there was one player who ended up having a pretty decent career in the NHL and internationally. But there was one player. I still laugh at this story. So he goes to his girlfriend's place. It's like a Wednesday night or something like that. I think curfew's like 10. This is a sort of legendary story. Some circles in the queue. And it's like 9 o'clock, 9:15, 9:25, 9:40, quarter to 10. And his girlfriend says to him, like your curfew is 10. Like your coach or assistant coach is going to call and you're not going to be there. You're going to get in trouble or you're going to get like suspended for a game or like you're going to miss curfew. And he goes, no. And he goes into his gym bag and he pulls out a phone. He says, I brought the phone from my billet's house. I'll plug it in here, and when the coach calls, he'll think I'm really there, and everything will be fine. You know, there's two kinds of dumb in the world. There's dumb, and then there's hockey dumb. We've all met like hockey dumb people. That is one of my favorite hockey dumb. Like, I can only imagine what went through that poor young woman's head when she just realized, I'm dating the stupidest man in the world. Like, my boyfriend is the dumbest person on the face. No. I brought my billet's phone here. I'll just plug it in, and then he'll think that I'm at my billet's house.
Yeah,
Again,
that was when she was, until that point, she was like, it's so cool, I'm dating a hockey player. This is so cool. And then she went, oh, I'm dating a hockey player.
Then she's thinking, oh, does this mean like our children would be dumb if I stay with this guy? Hang on, I need to reevaluate my life. But this is why I want to I want to ask this question because we were just having this conversation, Zach and I, before the program. How many people do you see in hockey that you think would be completely incapable of functioning in society if there was no hockey? Like, just imagine for 1 second, there's no such thing as hockey, and these same people who are in hockey are roaming free amongst us, sharing oxygen. How many of them would be able to make it through a day? Like, have you ever met someone who has like a real significant place in hockey? Either on a team, in an organization, a league, like whatever, and you say to yourself, like, how do you get through a day? How do you like, if there was and listen, I'm not putting myself above anybody else too. This has been my livelihood my entire life. I don't know what I would do if there wasn't hockey. I have no clue what I would be doing. So I'm not saying like there's me and everybody else, the mouth breathers over there. But how many times have you wondered about people in hockey? What would you do if there was no hockey? I have no idea what I would do. I think there'd be a lot of people that we'd sort of recalibrate how we thought about them as functioning members of society if there wasn't any hockey. What do you think about that, Zach?
I also don't know what I would do. I had the conversation recently with people who just like didn't really kind of understand how hockey players still act and talk and think the way they do when they're like adults. And my roommate and I play hockey together, but he kind of got out of it earlier, and he's kind of a little bit different than I am, because I think earlier on he was more integrated into the real world and outside of hockey than I was. So I still have a lot of those, as you do, the hockey tendencies, maybe we could call them. And I was like, you got to realize, like, these guys, they have been in the locker room just shooting shit with the boys since they were 6 years old, 5 years old, some of them, right? And it's like, they are still that 15-year-old kid making stupid jokes in the locker room.
Yes,
like,
yes.
That's who they are as grown men.
Yeah, I know. Doesn't stop. So in the chat, Mr. Public Pain submits so many, Jeff, like 57% would have to be told to open the fridge for food. Stubaka98 says civilian dumb, Little Willie style. She's dating a civilian. That's a good one. Kim Banks, 89% of them. John Benkart, that dude would be eating countertops across the nation as a bit. There's dumb and then there's hockey dumb. We've probably been both. Okay, coming up on the show today, Daily Outlines, presented by FanDuel, North America's #1 sportsbook app provider. We got a couple of great guests and a few things we want to go over with you. Want to talk a little bit more about Mikko Rantanen and that situation with the Carolina Hurricanes, and where he, if indeed, like, it's not a guarantee here that the Carolina Hurricanes would trade him if they can't sign him. Who knows? Eric Tulsky is a different kind of thinker. But if he goes somewhere, where do you see him landing? The Calgary Flames, and we're going to play a clip from Morning Cup of Hockey where the guys had a profound disagreement of whether the Calgary Flames should add or should just stay put. And now I missed it this morning. I was out with the dog, and timing-wise, I haven't been able to go back and watch or listen to the show. But apparently, Zach, this was a pretty animated moment of the program. And we'll share that with you a little bit later on. So we'll talk about Rantanen. We'll talk about the Flames. Jean-Luc Grand-Pierre will stop by, analyst for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Game 1 of 2 between the CBJs and the Detroit Red Wings. Speaking of the Wings, Max Bultman covers the Wings for The Athletic. He will drop by the program today, so we'll get some Ohio love, some Michigan love, and we got an idea for a new segment leading up to trade deadline. And our trade deadline coverage, by the way, March the 7th, from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. on our Daily Faceoff YouTube channel. More information as it becomes available, but there's the fancy billboard we have for it at our Daily Faceoff YouTube channel, 11 to 4 Eastern. Although I would imagine that 4 is kind of flexible, because trades continue to trickle in afterwards. So that is not like a hard, we got to, switch programming. We got to get to Dunedin for the Jays preseason. Like, no, we don't. There's none of that. He can splash over into whatever. And there's not necessarily any stop sets or clocks that we have to adhere to with any specificity. So how about that? 11 to 4-ish. I think I'm safe to say that, right, Zach? 11 to 4-ish. Now, one thing before I get to all those topics and guests, and you're going to crack the whip again and make sure that I get to all of this stuff. Was having an interesting conversation like right before the show and with someone from a team. You got to be as vague as possible with these things. Having a conversation with someone from a team, and this isn't a team that is or has ever been interested in Seth Jones of the Chicago Blackhawks, but I think a lot of us are wondering, how does this thing play itself out? Like, it's obvious that this marriage is over. Seth Jones has talked openly about it. I mean, the last couple of games, one game he's talking about, how much he misses, Columbus and how much of a good time he had there. And then, as we all saw a couple of nights ago, Seth Jones is, saying how we haven't improved since game one. We're the same team, same mistakes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you wonder, with an AAV of 9.5 for 5 more years, you say to yourself, like, how is this going to end? And this one person brought up an interesting idea to me. And I got to noodle it around in my head here and try to look at, the marketplace and make some phone calls to see if, this would actually be a possibility. But this person said to me, look, he has a $5 million bonus that's due on July 1st. Okay? He said, is this a possible solution for everybody? Because this needs to end for Chicago. It needs a change of scenery for Seth Jones. He said to me, what if both sides agree to mutually terminate the contract? And my first thought is, like, who's walking away from $36 million? But if you have a look at the actual contract, okay, like after that $5 million is paid, okay, so he's got $36 million that he would be owed over 5 years. Okay, so the lion's share of the money is all paid up front. So if they terminate, then do you the question becomes, do you think he can get $7 million times 5 years in the marketplace? Because if he can, then that comes in at $35 million, $1 million short of what he's earning right now. And he gets to go in an environment where he's happy. Sure, the Hawks have to pay the signing bonus on July 1st, but they rid themselves of that contract. Is that a scenario? Because moving him is going to be difficult, specifically if Kyle Davidson believes he's going to get something of significance for a $9.5 million cap hit. It's an interesting idea, the mutual termination with that much money left on it. But if you believe that money is out there, like the exact same dollar figure or similar enough to it, that Seth Jones would be amenable, are they headed for a mutual termination of the deal?
That's an interesting point. I didn't think that was even really a possibility, but fair enough. And I mean, also thinking about how you put it there, could he get 7 by 5? The only thing is, I wonder if a team would want to see something out of him first, because I think we all believe, which is kind of hard to do, right? But it's like we all believe that he can get back to it if he's happy, if he's in the right spot, he's got the right people surrounding him, right? Whatever. Yeah. And I think it's out there. I do think he's going to be a good player. Again, like return back, but getting there is the issue. And Jeff, I think of when you bring that up, baseball as well. So like I'll kind of bring it to that because I can think of an example in the NBA, but this is where I wonder if there's an opportunity for like a bigger picture conversation from the NHL here. How there's that like buyout period in the MLB, right? Like the second trade deadline that comes. And then in a lot of players get traded to teams, they get bought out, and then there's a period or a window of time where players can get bought after the fact. They can get bought out and then picked up by other teams. I wonder if that's something that the NHL explores. I think somewhere looking around those where, hey, the trade deadline happens, but then there's that extra period of players who maybe don't get traded. They could be dropped and picked up elsewhere.
See, the interesting thing about, well, first of all, that'd be obviously need to be negotiated in the CBA with the NHL Players Association. But the one thing that the NHL has always been sensitive about, and this came around during COVID when they redid the CBA, they had a chance to do things like amnesty buyouts. Anytime the CBA is opened, like they did amnesty buyouts, 04-05 lockout, because everyone needed to get down to $39 million was the ceiling. Oh my God. $39 million was your ceiling and 21 was your floor. But that was the world we lived in, folks. The NHL has always gone out of their way, like out the door, around the block, to make sure that there is no money outside the system. all the money needs to stay. Like they had, like that is one of those, the great Bill Daly, the hill will die on quotes come lockout time. That's one of the things. And that comes right from ownership. No money outside the system. My argument has always been, we've been with this CBA now going back to 2005. It's time to take the training wheels off of this salary cap and start to do new and different things with it. It's a conversation for another day, but it is an interesting one. Now, a pair of big games on the horizon. There is a Stadium Series on Saturday, and there's a game tonight as well. It is the Columbus Blue Jackets facing off against the Detroit Red Wings. Pleased to be joined by Jean-Luc Grand-Pierre, former NHLer, and now analyst with the Columbus Blue Jackets. He joins me on the sheet. Salut, Jean-Luc!
Salut, Jeff! Ça va bien?
Oui, et toi?
Ah, ça va très bien, ça va très bien.
Je peux parler un peu, mais pas beaucoup, okay? Pas beaucoup. Anyway, no one wants to hear my bad French here on the program, but thanks for indulging me here. First of all, scale of 1 to 10, the excitement factor for this one. I mean, these games are more about the local market than TV. It's no longer really a television event, but the local market always jazzed for it and pops for it. There's a big game tonight, then the big game on Saturday, Stadium Series. Level of excitement for this one is what?
Extremely, extremely high, Jeff, is what I would tell you. And simply because if you would have asked anyone, when the season started, would these two teams be 2 points apart in an exciting race to get into the playoff? Most people, including myself, would have said probably not, but there we are. Yeah. 64 points between those two games and those two teams. And then on top of it, what I love is that it's a back-to-back, right? So tonight the Blue Jackets will be playing. So that would be Thursday night. Blue Jackets are playing in Detroit. They have the mom strip on top of it, and then all the moms and the dads will be waiting here in Columbus for the big party on Saturday night at the Shoe. So you couldn't have scripted this story any better.
It is great. Like, just to be blunt, not to sort of start this conversation on a downer, but everyone, like, there's a part of everybody. There's a part of everybody in the NHL who this year are cheering for the Blue Jackets, are cheering for the Calgary Flames. This is all, of course, about Johnny Gaudreau. But like this is a year where we all said, man, we really hope that Columbus has a great year. Do it for Johnny. Do it for the Gaudreau family. But in the back of our minds, and you played, NHL's hard, man. Like NHL's a really hard league to say. As much as you want CBJ to do well, don't know that it's going to happen. I got to say, I mean, you're right there. This is one of the more impressive stories in the NHL this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as well, you've covered the sport for long enough. Things can fall apart in a moment. I will say Dean Evason and Don Waddell, the whole staff have been fantastic as far as the attitude, the way they've approached things on the night-to-night basis. Mm-hmm. But if anything, just to be in a conversation, and it is, the month of March here in a couple of days, is a big step forward for this organization. And I'm not thinking loser mentality or anything like that, but with all the obstacles that have been in the wheels of the Blue Jackets, whether we're talking about the situation with Patrick Laine or with Johnny Gaudreau and everything that happened in the offseason, you go back 2 years with the Babcock story. Right now, to be in March and talking about a playoff chase is a big positive. So, well, I don't want to get greedy here. Of course, I want to get in the playoffs, and yes, I want to win the Stanley Cup. Sure. But just for this young core of guys, the Johnson, the Fantillis, the Marchenko, to feel playing some pressure hockey at this time of the year, it's going to be so valuable for the rest of the group for, moving forward.
It really is too. I mean, listen, and anyone that I've ever talked to who's been on a struggling team has always said the same thing. Everyone's professional. Everyone needs to prepare. You're getting paid a lot of money. It's the NHL. But I mean, it's got to be so hard when, Christmas time rolls around, the New Year rolls around, and you're just playing empty calorie games because you're out of it. Like it's really hard, and it can affect people. And that's why here's one thing that I wonder about. There is the inspiration of the memory of Johnny Gaudreau, certainly, and that's front and center on Columbus Blue Jackets, Calgary Flames, USA Hockey, all tournaments, and it's a beautiful thing. Watching Michael Ruggioni at the Four Nations come out with the Gaudreau jersey was beautiful. There was another moment this season that I felt, and you can tell me whether I'm right about this one or wrong, there was a moment that I felt really galvanized this organization. And that was when Patrik Laine lipped off about Columbus and lipped off about the players. And Werenski came to the defense of Columbus and the players in the room right away. You played in the NHL. You know what it's like. If you give a hockey player an issue to rally around, if you give them something that challenges them, they got to the NHL living on this. This is red meat. This is a protein shake. I looked at it and I said, as much as this may be painful to hear someone talk about your organization like that, I kind of thought that Patrik Laine gave Columbus a gift. Because all of a sudden it's like, boys, let's prove him wrong. Am I on base or off base on this one?
You're completely on base. You couldn't be more right. And it's funny, I was talking to a bunch of the Montreal media on some radio and TV shows after this game. And, they were talking about, the whole Laine thing after the game. And I said, first of all, if I was one of his teammates, I'd be upset with him. Thanks for giving some fuel to the point before the game, right? Not after the game, before the game. For that. But on top of it, what it really told me about this team is that they really are sticking up for each other. And you look at that game, and there was no penalties taken against him, but some of the guys that were mostly involved in altercation with Patrik Laine were not on a team last season. So it just shows you how tight of a group this is, because if you look back at that first period that he played, Dante Fabbro, who was in Nashville last season and earlier this year, does not know Patrik Laine from, anything, right? Mm-hmm. And he was one of the guys that was going at him extremely hard every time he was on the ice. And it's not like Fabbro's an enforcer. So to me, that shows not only the room cares about each other, but more importantly, it doesn't matter if I was there or not last year or when Patrik Laine was there. We're all one unit and we're going to show it. So for me, that was incredible moment. And obviously same thing for Dean Evason. He wasn't there last season, but again, the fact that he went at those guys indirectly by saying, I'll leave it to your imagination who I'm talking about, that was not a good move.
Let me ask you about one of the tougher players on this team. You mentioned, listen, Dante Fabbro is not an enforcer. And I would even make the argument that Matthew Olivier is not your classic enforcer either. Here's a guy that plays a third line role. He starts games. He kills penalties. He's become a valuable member. He's potentially a free agent come July 1st, make the symbol with the fingers rubbing together in the money. I look at Olivier and I say, this is one of the ultimate luxury items that any team can have. In an NHL world where everybody can skate, everybody can shoot, everybody can play, we keep hearing managers say, well, what else can he do? What else can he give me? And not everybody can give what Matthew Olivier can. What does he mean to this team?
Everything. Whether you talk about what he brings on the ice, you talk about killing penalties. 3 minutes left, 1 goal lead. He's the first one over the board, right? Now Boone Jenner's back as well, so it's him and Boone. Yep. Sometimes you'll see Corrali, but it is literally defensively he's extremely good. He knows when to pick his spots, right? Offensively, as far as the physicality as well, when to throw a big hit. Very disciplined, and he's a much better hockey player than a lot of people thought. And for him, he's battled injuries over the last few offseason, but this past offseason, was able to be on the ice and really skate. And he changed his training regimen a little bit as well, as far as, less time in the gym, a little bit more on the ice. And obviously, you can see that it worked out. Whatever he did worked out great for him. And as far as a voice in a room, he's taking a bigger role. There's no doubt about it. He's definitely one of the leaders on this team. He may not be the most rah-rah guy, but when he talks, obviously you're going to listen. And, the Fantillis, the Johnson, the Sillingers, the Marchenkos, all these guys, even Zach Werenski, they know, hey, I can do my thing and not have to worry about somebody coming at my head because 24 is going to be there to answer the bell. And to be honest with you, it's been extremely quiet against Columbus, which is something that, remember, Yarmo addressed 3 or 4 seasons ago after that terrible year under Brad Larson, when he said, okay, enough of this. We're going to bring Goodbranson, Olivier, but Olivier has been a great revelation for this group, no doubt.
Quick point that I'd like your comments on. This from our chat. Johnny Lazarus, who co-hosts the morning show here, Morning Cup of Hockey. Johnny Lazarus submits this one. Kirill Marchenko, most improved player of the year. Now, if there was an award for the most improved player of the year, I might be tempted to throw Mackenzie Blackwood in there, but Kirill Marchenko's got to be right up around the top.
He has to. And for Marchenko, it's not just the offensive output. Yes, it's there. There's no doubt about it. He's been great with Marchenko, with Fantilli. It doesn't matter. But for Marchenko, first of all, if you ever met him, the joy of this guy of playing hockey is incredible, and he does not fit Russian hockey. And that's the first thing he said. That's what I love about North America is like it's fun to play. We can smile, we can joke around, do our job. We couldn't do that in Russia. But his commitment is incredible. So he signed a 3-year deal this past summer under Don Waddell. And what was it, February 2nd, I believe, we were in Dallas, and he took a puck to the face, broke his jaw, had surgery that night in Dallas, flew back, and he was supposed to go on vacation in I don't know exactly where, but on the beach somewhere during the Four Nations tournament. Decided to stay in Columbus and literally practice the whole time in Columbus and skating to get used to playing with that visor. I mean, if that doesn't show you the type of commitment this young guy has, it's incredible. And then you look at, and I know the plus minuses are not the same as when I played in the early 2000s, but he's on the Columbus Blue Jacket and he's second in the league behind Ryan McDonough as far as plus minuses. So to me, that shows you one thing. He's extremely good offensively, but if you look at his defensive game, the way he battles for pucks, he reminds me of the way Panarin was when he was here. Not the biggest guy. He's bigger than Panarin, but the way he can protect the puck and retrieve the puck so often, whether it's on the back check, on the forecheck, makes him that much more valuable.
Plus 33. 33, comme on dit en français. 33, comme on dit en français.
I'll take that any day, right?
Yeah, that's some good numbers. Well, listen, you mentioned the old time Columbus Blue Jackets, and you were with the organization for a number of years. You know the marketplace, the city. Before the team got there, whenever I heard Columbus, I would always think, oh, that's the test market town. That's where they test all the new products. Oh, the new chips, the new cereal, the new that's Columbus. So you were there, you're still there, like you're back, you're now, in your second career. How has Columbus as a hockey town changed since you were there with like Nash and Whitney and all those guys?
Well, big time. How did it change? So first you thought, obviously it's still a college town. There's no doubt about it. Ohio State. I mean, we talk about it everywhere. Now the Columbus Blue Jackets are making more and more noise over the last few years, unfortunately for the wrong reason, because, Panarin and Bobrovsky and Seth Jones and everybody decided to leave. But if you look at the enthusiasm for hockey this season, the fans don't need, and I don't want to say they don't need, of course they want to win the Stanley Cup, but all they want to see from this team is a team that battles. Right? A team that battles, that is in the fight, and is going to put on a good show. Right? That's what they got this season under Dean Evason. And that's why I said, yes, making the playoffs would be great, but it doesn't matter what. People are going to show up simply because of the way this team has been playing this year. But if you look at the growth of the sport just in general in the city, it is huge. Whether we talk about the learn to play hockey for the young kids, you look at high school hockey. I mean, when Doug McLean was here, I think there was like maybe 6 teams. Yeah. Now, I mean, we have like 3 division now in hockey. So it seems like every little community has their own team, and just youth hockey in general, not just high school hockey. We're talking girl hockey. We're talking special, sled hockey. Mm-hmm. Every type of hockey has grown around Columbus, and that's a big honor to the McConnell family who've done a wonderful job as far as growing the game here. So they're excited. Mm-hmm. There's no doubt about it, and I think the culmination of all of this is going to happen here Saturday.
Do you know how many rinks there are? Just offhand, I'm kind of putting you on the spot here. Like, do we have an idea? Because I'm always into that. Like, you going from the root to the fruit. And like the growth of hockey is going to be paralleled with the emergence of more sheets. Do you have an idea of how many of how many sheets there are in Columbus? How many rinks there are now?
So I'm counting right now. So we have 3 in Dublin, 3, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12. I would say probably right around 14 now.
Okay.
Like, I'm talking if I'm in downtown within, call it like a 20-minute drive, right?
Okay.
And then obviously there's one at Nationwide, like that's attached to Nationwide, where a lot of minor hockey teams and, adult league teams play as well, which is the practice rink for the Blue Jackets. So there's definitely been a growth. Obviously it is expensive, but there's definitely room for growth, because I'm not lying to you. Right now, if you look at adult league schedules, and, I get invited once in a while to put the pads on goaltender in those leagues once in a while. I mean, 11:30 starts are not uncommon because there's so much demand for the ice. So there's definitely been a big growth on that side of things as well.
Let me ask you about a couple more things before I let you go. I am very curious about this Columbus Blue Jackets team and the turnaround. And there's some new faces. You mentioned Don Waddell certainly comes in as manager, and look, he's fearless. The one thing we know about Don Waddell is he's in on a lot of conversations and he's not afraid to pull the trigger. But I'm really curious about Dean Evason. Now, one of my favorite things about coaches is the death stare. It's always scarier not when the coach is yelling and screaming, because there's part of that is like comedy. Like, I look at it, I'm like, oh, okay, like putting on a big act. But coaches that are quiet and have, what I'm talking about too, because I'm sure you've played for some, that have that stare, that's just like horror movie. It's frightening. And right now in the NHL, Dean Evason may have the best and most frightening stare of any coach in the league. Agree or disagree? Can you think of another coach who would stare as intensely as Dean Evason? And you know what I'm talking about too. Like you probably look back on the bench. Ooh, geez, there's that look again. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I know exactly what you're talking about. He becomes extremely red, and he's big by stature, but he's extremely scary. And Jeff, I don't need to think of a coach. I just think of my dad. Right, growing up, my dad was the dad that my mom would do all the yelling, and my dad, it was that stare when he came home, and it was I'll tell you, Dad, and Dad would come home, look at me. Dean Evason's got that stare right there, and there's no doubt about it. What's interesting is I cannot recall through the first 56 games of the season, Dean Evason calling a timeout ever to rally the troops. Maybe late in the game, but when things don't go right in the game and he's like, okay, let's call a timeout and talk to them. He's got that look, and that buys him those timeouts, because if you look at Dean Evason this season, I don't believe he called a single timeout before late in the third period to address the team. So that just shows you the amount of respect and the amount of, like you said, that stare commands respect in that room. You can tell that the guys love playing for him, but also they know it's fun. But when it's time to go to business, to do your business, you better be ready. And that's the type of guy he is.
Let me close on this one. Can't have a conversation about the Columbus Blue Jackets without mentioning Zach Werenski and what he's meant to the team. It is seldom that a defenseman will lead the team in scoring, but that's where we're at right now with Zach Werenski and the Columbus Blue Jackets. The emergence of him as an elite level defenseman, as a high level leader on this team, had a great Four Nations. Like this has been in a lot of ways, and he's in the conversation for the Norris. In a lot of ways, it's been I don't want to say a coming out party, because everyone's known about Zach Werenski, but are we seeing like a different kind of Zach Werenski? And essentially, what I'm asking here is this the best you've ever seen him play?
No doubt about it. Number one for Zach Werenski, knock on wood, he's been healthy. Right, we know the injuries took a toll on him over the last few years. So consistency's been a big thing for him. And then the other thing for me is really finding him a partner that would let him just be Zach, right? Yeah. That's what he had. Seth Jones was here. And, they've been looking left, right. And then next thing you know, a waiver claim from Nashville comes along. And ever since that, Zach Werenski absolutely took off when Dante Fabro joined the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Yeah, interesting.
So, and it's been a perfect match for him. And, Zach has grown a lot as far as his leadership skills as well. I think with the loss of Johnny, he took on a lot as far as rallying the troops quietly behind the scene. A lot of things that people don't know outside that he's been doing. Whether it's supporting the Gaudreaus or just making sure that the team is all on the same page. Mm-hmm. So I would call it the year of growth for Zach Werenski. And what we see on the ice is just the tip of the iceberg, because I think his personal growth has been even larger on the backside. So he's a hell of a player, and the Blue Jackets are very happy with the way he's been conducting himself this year. There's no doubt.
Let me close with one comment for you. This is from Stephen Ellis, who does a lot of the prospect reporting that we do at the Nation Network. In NHL 06, I traded for Jean-Luc Grand-Pierre and won the German league title. I'll never forget that. You played, 3 years in Germany? 4 years in Germany? You played a couple of years there, no?
3 of my favorite years over in Germany, absolutely.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I got my first professional hat trick there.
Hey!
Wonderful. Got to run the power play. It was a little different role, but yes. Glad our fella brought the championship because of me. I wish it was in the NHL, but you know what? We'll take it in the German league.
Hey, man, NHL 06, baby. NHL 06. You be good. Enjoy the game tonight. Enjoy what's going to be a fantastic weekend.
All right, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
We'll talk soon. Jean-Luc Grand-Pierre, analyst for the Columbus Blue Jackets. We got to have him on more often, man. He's just flat out entertaining as well. That's great. Traded for him. Stephen Ellis is, first of all, no one watches more hockey than Ellis. Nobody knows more about not just the hockey that we all watch, but really obscure games and teams and countries and divisions. No one kills it like Stephen Ellis. He's fantastic. That comment doesn't surprise you at all, does it, Philly? From Stephen Ellis?
No, it doesn't.
Nobody watches.
It does not. When I saw that, I was laughing. But
the German
that
league.
Would make a lot of sense. Yeah. I don't think ever in my life I've gone away from playing just NHL, the regular league. Of course, it would be Stephen Ellis who's running a German league.
Yeah, not a shock whatsoever.
Yeah.
Do we have a couple of moments before Max comes on, or is he standing by?
He's ready to go if you want to.
Okay, let's clean up the other stuff then later, because I want to talk about the Detroit Red Wings with Max Bultman, who covers the Detroit Red Wings for The Athletic. He joins me now on the sheet. Max, a pleasure to welcome you to the program here today. How are you?
I'm doing great. I feel like I need to go start a franchise mode with Mannheim now after hearing that last one.
Dallas Eakins is your head coach if you're starting. He's your guy. Go. I don't know if Nigel Dawes is still there. Nigel, after the career in the NHL, I think he played with Mannheim for a couple of years and was their star. I always like Mannheim because they're not shy about spending, and they always have a decent team. And there's always a couple when you go to your EPs or your hockey DBs, you can start to pick off the old NHL names in Mannheim. Anyhow, I digress. Just talking to Jean-Luc Grand-Pierre a little bit about the Columbus Blue Jackets, and look, man, so much about life is timing, whether it's your personal life, whether it's your professional life, or whether it is a stadium series game. Nuzzled up into wild card spots as we have this conversation, the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Detroit Red Wings. For Columbus, there's an element of found money. For Detroit Red Wings, there's a sort of air of, it's about time. Your thoughts on where the Wings are at right now?
It's been pretty remarkable. I mean, I thought at the time they made the coaching change, I thought, give it a whirl, but it looked like the die were cast on their season, right? And to see how far they've been able to get back into this race in really 2 months flat has been remarkable. I mean, I think they have the best record in the NHL since McClellan's first practice, which was the day after his first game on the 27th. It's been incredible, and the new energy, new life in their season, and they've just looked like a different team. I don't know how else to put it.
It really is interesting, too, when you have a coaching change like that. And he's no stranger, as you know, to the Detroit Red Wings, was on Babcock's bench, et cetera. I don't know if there's been, one of the things that I wondered about right away was the Detroit Red Wings were the best at those skating picks, casual picks, however you want to describe it. You have Zetterberg, you have Datsuk in your lineup. You can get away with that. They're the best maybe in the history of the game at doing that, just shading players. Shading play. I mean, they would refer to it as 1 minute penalties. It looks like a penalty, but is that really a 2? The Wings were the masters of that. Jay Woodcroft told me they used to call it 1 minute penalty. Go out there and take a 1 minute penalty. Really force an official to make a call. And so the Red Wings were the best at just shading guys and coming close. It's not a 2, maybe a 1 minute penalty, but we can't call a 1. Are there any like symmetries that people have pointed out from, the last time he was there under Babcock as opposed to now as the head coach? I know it's a different roster, obviously.
Yeah, there's just not that many people who were around for both. I guess I could ask some of the beat writers, Helena St. James and Kevin Allen, who have been around and seen it all. They could probably answer that a little bit better than I could. But honestly, I hear Babcock in his voice, though, right? Like some of the accent and some of the.
Can we pause on that? What is it with people who used to work? And I think of Jeff Blashill. Like I would always close my eyes and I go like, is that Jeff Blashill talking, or is that Mike? What is it about people who have worked on Babcock's bench sounding like Babcock in interviews? That's a great point,
I think
Max.
It was one of the first few availabilities, and I heard him call someone a good player, and I was like, wait a minute.
He's a good player. Yeah, good player is always the touch off there. So there's the coaching change, but again, Todd doesn't put on skates. These are the players that have to do this. So whenever there's a coaching change, there's opportunity. Who do you think, and I want to eventually get this to Marco Kasper, by the way, who do you think has really grabbed onto this opportunity?
He's certainly one of them. I mean, the two you'd have to point to above all others are Kasper getting elevated onto that top line role. He had been playing center through the year and doing, I thought, a pretty good job of it. At times he was centering their second line. I know in the future that's where the Red Wings see him, but in the meantime, he's breaking in next to Dylan Larkin, and he's brought a lot to that line. I mean, he's a player who's defined, I think, by his speed and the way he can play in the hard areas of the ice, his competitiveness, and that plays really well with two of Detroit's best forwards, with Larkin and with Raymond. It's translated on the score sheet, but I think you see it the way his pace helps them, the way he's able to go into the corners and extend possessions. That's been a huge element of that. The other guy's Albert Johansson, and that's a defenseman who had been kind of bouncing in and out, 6'7" defenseman all year. A player I like. I think everyone who's ever had him on their team says good things about him. They say pretty much the same thing. You start to notice him the more you have him, like, oh, he's always doing the right things. He doesn't have loud tools. He's a good skater, but he's not big. He's not going to put up dynamic offense. He just kind of does his job. And he got thrust into that second pair role when Jeff Petrie went down, and he's been a little bit of a revelation for them and how well he's been able to handle a huge jump in workload. So those are the two guys that I think you'd have to put above all the others in that category.
Have you had many one-on-one conversations with Marco Kasper?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like a really, first of all, like mature beyond his years. I remember talking to him at the Combine in Buffalo his draft year, and he came into the room that we were doing the interviews, and he walks in a suit and a bow tie. I'm like, what era are you from? Like, what generation? And then he was talking about, leaving home when he was, 14 to go to school, living on his own. And I'm like, 14 years old? Like, I'd be sobbing like every day, missing my family. He's like, oh yeah, no big thing, and has his hockey career on the side. Like, he just strikes me as someone like who's like he's just like, he's 30 years old, or he's like 35 years old in the body of like a, what is he, like 21, 22-year-old.
He might only be 20. I'd have to go look at his age. He was that 22 draft class, right? So he's probably going to turn 21 sometime this year. I went and visited him in Rogla at Ängelholm after his draft year when he was still playing there. And I remember he had me meet him at a coffee shop. He was like, I think they had something in the morning, and then he had school, and then he's like, meet me at the coffee shop. And we went and sat. And one of the things that I remember from that conversation is him telling me about how into chess he was at that time. Like, him and I think a couple of his teammates were playing virtual chess on the bus rides, and it was the last thing they would do before they go to bed was making their chess moves and all that. And I think he was 18 at the time, maybe 19 tops. I think he was 18. Yeah. And I don't know how your chess game is, Jeff. Mine's not great, and I have never had any doubt that. Yeah, I would get crushed by Marco Kasper at chess is the only thing I know.
Let me ask you about Moritz Seider. And it seemed as if, early in his career, like really force-fed minutes and big situations. And even like last year, you would look at him and you'd say, like, there's no one in the NHL who gets fed more difficult situations against elite level talent, more so than Moritz Seider on a consistent basis, like the hardest matchups of any defenseman in the NHL. And you would think like, okay, there's going to be like a wear and tear to that. Like, it's going to weigh on you physically. He's in season 4 with the Detroit Red Wings, and he hasn't missed a game. Like, to me,
Yeah,
it's just like one
everyone,
of the great talking points that doesn't get enough concert. He's never missed a game. Never missed a game.
It's incredible. Everyone in Detroit, by the way, is begging that you knock on wood after saying that because he's become so important to them. But no, he's incredible. And to your point about the workload, that was something I was really curious to see. You know, they were feeding him still into this season the hardest minutes in the NHL, and he's still up there. But that's one of the ways that things have shifted a bit under McLellan is he's scaled it back just enough. Right now, he's no longer the far and away toughest matchups in the league. Now he's more like 6th, 7th, 8th. Yeah. And I think it's freed him up a little bit. I think you see really what that difference is. I remember checking at the end of last season. Okay, he's got the toughest minutes in the league. How do the other guys that have minutes that hard fare? And I think in the top 10, I think it was hard to find anybody that had an expected goal share above 50%. But then you got into that next rung, 10 through 15, and you're talking about a lot of the best defensemen in the league. I think there's a real sweet spot to what you can ask of guys and expect them to really drive play. It's one thing to be able to eat the minutes and survive them, and he was doing that. But now you scale it back just enough. He's still taking brutally hard matchups, but he's not just surviving anymore. He's thriving in them.
I want to get your thoughts on Dylan Larkin coming out of Four Nations, but before I get there, what we're seeing right now out of Detroit, listen, Detroit Red Wings fans, they've been false started before. That's not exactly a secret. We've all seen it before. What we're looking at here, is this legit or is this fool's gold? Like, what is this?
I think that's what we're all trying to figure out because it's been remarkable. You never know how long exactly to classify something as that new coach bump. You see it every time, almost, team makes a change. The next 10, 12 games, they're going to go on a nice little run. How long does that last and how long – when do you start talking about it as, okay, this is their new reality? 24, I believe, games in now they are under McLellan, and I think you're past just calling it the bump. But there's still a question of what's sustainable. They got the toughest schedule remaining in the NHL. A lot of those games are on the road. They're going to have to win some tough games. And I think because of what you saw happen last year, there is a little bit of gun shyness to declare, okay, now it's real, right? Last year, I think at this time of year, I was saying it would take a monumental collapse for them to miss. And guess what happened, right? You lose Dylan Larkin for 2 weeks and it derails basically 3 weeks. I think it derails basically your whole season. So there's always that risk out there. And they've had some injuries pop up now with Andrew Kopp out for the year, with Michael Rasmussen. He's only day to day, but he's been out. So there's still that hesitation. And I think, coming into the deadline, the curiosity now is, will they get reinforcements? The blue line is a little thinned out after losing Petrie, as good as Johansson's been. And I think that there's a question of, do you add a center to try to replace Kopp or do you promote internally?
There really is. And you hear this every year when a team, and I think we're wondering about this with a couple of different teams, most notably the Winnipeg Jets, maybe the Washington Capitals. Not that Detroit's at that level, but there is an idea that the general manager owes the team a trade at deadline as a reward for where they've gotten to, right? Not that you want to upset the chemistry, and I think this is a big consideration in Winnipeg and in Washington, where there's do we add versus wreck the chemistry here? Do we want to, ruin what we have going? But is there in Detroit an idea that Steve Yzerman owes this team something at deadline? You're right there. Give us something for the push.
I think there's a little bit of a split, especially if you talk about the fan base. There are some who says, yes, hey, it's time. Everyone's paid their dues. The players responded better than anyone could have hoped to the coaching change. Reward that and boost your odds. The other side of it is, they've improved, and do you want to disrupt that? They have a good thing going. If you bring someone in, someone else is getting pushed out. And I think one of the ways McLellan helped them was by making everyone feel important. I think he upped their confidence. They were really reliant on that Seider-Edvinsson pair. They were really reliant on Larkin to brink at Raymond. As McLellan's got in, they've become less so. They're still, I think, a fairly top-heavy team when you look at where their contributions come from, their offensive contributions. But everyone's playing a more significant role, and I think they're getting more out of guys that way. I think it's a fair debate. And last year you saw what they did. They stood pat, and hey, it didn't work out. So maybe they learn from that, or maybe they follow the same model because they still feel the same way this time as they did last year.
I thought that Jacob Slavin was the best player in the Four Nations tournament, consistently, game in and game out. But right there behind him was Dylan Larkin. Thoughts on, because I always thought that, Dylan Larkin is, if you're a Stanley Cup team, Dylan Larkin's your second line center. But this season and coming out of the Four Nations specifically, I don't know that I think that anymore. Your thoughts on what we just saw from Dylan Larkin?
Yeah, and that's been one of the cooler things coming out of the Four Nations has been seeing the response people have had to Larkin, because you can't blame anyone for what they may have projected Larkin to be on a playoff team. You never saw it. You only saw it his rookie year when he was 19 on Henrik Zetterberg's wing. How could you know what he would look like in a big game? Yeah. But if you've watched him closely in Detroit, there have been hints, right? And that's the way he plays when games are close. You know, he had that goal in Toronto late in the season to win it last year. That stuck in my mind as like, this is the kind of goal he's meant to score, are these tight game goals when the team really needs him. He doesn't shy away or shrink in those moments. And I think that's what you saw at the Four Nations. It's not like he lit the score sheet on fire, but he was so noticeable and he was not going to be denied. You know, even in that, I think it was the game after the Canada game, the Sweden game, not a particularly consequential game for them, but he's got 2 grade A chances in the first 10 minutes of that game. He's not going to roll over, even if the game's not, you know, strictly necessary for them to make the final. It's been really cool to see. I think there's more moments like that in Dylan Larkin. And hey, if the hockey world comes around to seeing him as even more than a, you know, 1C on a non-playoff team or a 2C on a playoff team, I think that's a great outcome.
You know, I'm going to make a point about the Calgary Flames coming up after we finish this conversation, but I want to sort of chum the waters of that discussion with a question about Little Caesars Arena. Like, it's a rink that hasn't seen a playoff game yet. You know that the Illich family would like that streak to end. Thank you very much, and get some playoff hockey here. How much of I always wonder about this, and I know it's Steve Yzerman and legendary figure and calls his shots and all of that, but I just wonder how much pressure there is from above to try to get this thing into the playoffs.
It's hard to say because it's not an organization that likes to, you know, let those things get out into the public. But I think we can say deductively that, yeah, they built this arena and they haven't had the moments yet that it was built for. If you've been there, I mean, it's acoustically incredible,
it's
right?
Fantastic. It's incredible.
It's a palace.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes.
When you're there, you just can't help but wonder, man, when the playoffs are here, what is this going to be like? You hear it get loud, regular season loud, and you go, wow, that was pretty impressive. You know, the whole setup of it. I don't know if you've seen the outside, like they have that plaza. There's a giant screen. And you just think, you know, hey, there's going to be people, you know, packed out here watching this on the TV. And absolutely. I think there has to be some pressure at this point, 7 or 8 actually now. Man, it's been a while since they moved into this building and haven't had it. I just think that's what you built it for. You built it to host big games, and you just got to deliver the big games now.
Okay, let me close on this because we've got Zachary in the chat demanding I ask you about Amadeus Lombardi, who A, has the coolest name in pro hockey, and 2, is a dynamite prospect for the Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah, and he's come out hot. He was injured, and he's come back. I think he's been really productive, right, since he got back into the lineup. I believe he had another goal last night, and he's a guy who I'm very curious to see. Does he get a late look this year? Is he a guy that you're talking about for next year? He took a big step, I think, this season of a guy who came into the AHL, and he had kind of the traditional transition year from junior to the American Hockey League, how much different the pace level is, what the physicality does to it.
Sure.
And this year, I think he's shown that he's made those adjustments. So really encouraging trajectory from him. And I'm very curious to see when we're talking about him as a Detroit Red Wing. It wouldn't stun me if it was, you know, at the end of this year, but I think more likely sometime next year.
I would say next year, but late season call up, that would probably mean that one of 2 things, that things are good for Detroit and they have a cushion, or to your previous point, this thing has gone into the ditch.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I think, what we'll decide it is. If the games matter, they're going to go with the guys they know they know what they're going to get, whether that's Dominic Schein or Austin Watson or whatever. But if the games are less, significant to their standings position, then hey, why not? He's played as well as anybody down there.
You're the best. Max, thanks so much for stopping by today. Much appreciated.
Thanks so much for having me, Jeff.
The great Max Bultman from The Athletic, both the writing and the podcast, too. Thanks to Max for stopping by. Thanks to Jean-Luc Grand-Pierre for stopping by as well. We have a few things here, and we're going to get to them all, including maybe some comments from the chat who have been. I knew the chat would get some pepper on it the minute you say Detroit Red Wings, because the one thing I know about Red Wings fans, they'll go anywhere if you're talking about their team. Yeah, they're like, what's the best way to phrase it? They will travel. Oh, there's this show over here talking about the Red Wings. We're going over there. Like, maybe more so than any other fan base, Red Wings fans will travel if you are talking about their team. Bless them all.
I noticed that putting out some clips and stuff, or anytime we've had
Detroit.
anybody come on the show, you say something about Detroit, and we've got Red Wings fans in the chat, in our replies, tweeting at us. I'm like, wow, you guys really show up.
They do. And that's why, again, I don't cheer for teams, cheer for stories, cheer for people. It's get the Red Wings back in the playoffs. It's great when the Red Wings in the playoffs. It's great when Philly's in the playoffs. That's another one you just want to see back in the postseason. Anyhow, got the Lombardi question in there for you, Zach. My favor to you, my gift to you on this Thursday, February 27th. Okay, what do we still have to go over here before we put the bow on the show?
So we didn't really talk about Rantanen, and we've got to do the Calgary discussion. Which one do you want to do first?
Let me just get a couple quick thoughts here on Mikko Rantanen. I don't know that Carolina moves him, first of all. I think that that organization and that general manager specifically doesn't think like other people. Like, you know what? Okay, let me go back to the beginning of the conversation that we had on today's show. What was it about? Dumb and hockey dumb, and could these people function if there wasn't hockey? You know who could function just fine if there wasn't hockey? Eric Tulsky.
Yeah, Eric Tulsky. Yeah.
Eric Tulsky would be 100% fine. All the rest of us shaved apes, well, you're not exactly a shaved ape, just an ape. All the rest of us shaved apes would have a really, really hard time functioning in normal society. Eric Tulsky would have zero problem. Like, when you consider the different things that he's interested and involved in, to say nothing of all the patents that he holds. Like, this is probably of all the possible jobs, here's something to think about. Of all the possible jobs that Eric Tulsky is qualified for, NHL general manager is probably the lowest paying of all of them.
Yeah, I know.
Yet he's chosen to be a general manager in the NHL. Think of all the other things that this guy could be doing, and he's taken the lowest paying job that he has the potential to do. That's impressive. But the point that I wanted to make about that is Tulsky doesn't think like everybody else. Tulsky doesn't think like other general managers. Tulsky will look at it. And the first glimpse I think that a lot of us got was that interview in the Expected by Whom podcast in the summer, where he talked about things like, are we just filling a hole, or are we trying to make our team better? I could just re-sign everybody. We'd be over the salary cap, but I guess re-sign everybody. But are we making our team better? Like, he thinks like that. Or he thinks along the lines of, I see cap space as a thing, which in one sense is very zen. The emptiness of a cup allows the cup to function. The nothingness around the door allows a door to open and close, and therefore it is a door. Like, that's the way that he thinks. That's the way that Eric Tulsky is wired. So Tulsky would look at maybe Rantanen and say, even if we just have him for the year, then he walks away, I've still gained something. I've gained cap space, and I enjoy the challenge of saying I'm smart enough to find someone to fill that role. I think that's the way Tulsky thinks, and that's the way Tulsky works. But if they were going to move him, and don't forget, already, Chicago's eaten part of the contract here, half the deal. Would Dallas make a lot of sense? See, to me, the one team, with Jim Nill, he's out there with the harpoon. He's fishing big, right? He's out there big gaming. It would be a deal where you'd have to send a significant player back to Carolina.
Hockey trade.
It would have to be the quote-unquote hockey trade. Although, really, every trade's a hockey trade.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, it's a hockey trade. These things we say to ourselves. Oh, it's an old-fashioned hockey trade.
It's a good goal.
Everything's a hockey trade. So we're talking about hockey. Picks, prospects, a hockey trade. Our language has ghosts in this sport, I swear. But someone again, I am just spitballing this. This is not a report. Okay? This is just a theoretical, a conversation with you, me, Zach, the Chad, and everyone's ears and eyeballs that somehow have... are paying attention to this little act. Like a Jason Robertson, for example. Now, complicating that is, does Jason Robertson skate to the level that would fit Rod Brindamore's system? So would that even be someone that Carolina would be interested in? But just as far as fit goes, I mean, Rupe Hintz playing with Mikko Rantanen. I know we all got excited thinking about Sebastian Aho with Mikko Rantanen. Could we not say the same thing about the Dallas Stars and Rupe Hintz and the 3-4 Finns they have on the Dallas Stars? Could that potentially make some sense? Does Dallas need to have an extension? What does that do to something like an internal salary cap? What does that mean when Thomas Harley and Wyatt Johnston get their new deals? Like I think that Thomas Harley, he might just crush their salary cap.
Yeah,
he's gonna have a great. First of all, he just had a great Four Nations. He's gonna have a great playoffs this year, no doubt. Watch, take it to the bank. Harley's gonna be great. He's gonna go to the Olympics and probably crush it there. And they've bridged him, so he's getting paid big. Like, he may just completely scotch their salary cap. So if you have someone like Rantanen on extension, what does that mean? And Wyatt Johnston's going to need a big deal too.
Yep.
Would Dallas just take him on a rental? If you're the Carolina Hurricanes, would you say to yourself, Jason Robertson at 7, bring in a $5 million player as well. It's worth more to us than a Mikko Rantanen. We see value, and we think of Thomas Dundon. Thomas Dundon's always interested in value. Jason Robertson at 7, it makes some sense. All I'm saying is, in advance of trade deadline, just submitting that for you to peruse in between your ears. How about that one, Zach? Does that make some sense for you, or is that like, Marek, you're eating space cake, beat it?
No, that one makes sense. I mean, I've kind of tried to look around and see where he could possibly fit. And we've had the conversation about, okay, yeah, there could be an extra retention on this one so he could go into somewhere else. But every time I've looked at or thought about what a Rantanen trade could look like, it's the words that we've just said. And, you know, I know that you don't like it based on that, but a hockey trade, right? Because Carolina's not looking to be like, let's get picks and prospects back just for this trade here right now. Like, no, they want to compete this year. That's the whole point of all of this and why they went and made this trade and why they did this here right now. That one does seem to make a lot of sense to me. Jason Robertson has another year.
Yes, one more year.
This. Yeah, one more year. So, okay, you kick that can down the road. It helps Carolina a little bit. Maybe it pushes Dallas because their window is now. It's not like it closes at the end of this year, but the window is now. Like, they got to go. So that one does seem to make sense.
The only thing that I wonder about there, again, I already mentioned, like, is if you're the Carolina Hurricanes, is Jason Robertson the right guy for that team? Like, so much what Rod Brindamore is pace, and that's not Jason Robertson's. That's not Jason Robertson's game. Anyhow,
it's like in Miracle, right, Jeff? Herb Brooks, he says we're not looking for the best players. We're looking for the right ones.
Or like Berkey said, I don't want a hero, I want a hockey player. It's a great line. Okay, what's the Calgary discussion? So I'm going to go and listen to the Morning Cup of Hockey podcast when this show is over. I'm going to take the boys to the gym with me here. What did I miss this morning about this Calgary discussion that's got you all tickled under your chin?
Okay, so everybody's got to go watch Morning Cup of Hockey. My routine is get up, go to the gym, get on the bike, start watching it, finish my workout, and watch it, and mess around in the chat the whole time. Today, there was a conversation. They're talking about, on the show, buyers and sellers ahead of the deadline and kind of going through each of the teams, some of the most prominent teams, etc. And the Calgary Flames came up. Jeff, I'm going to play you this clip. I wouldn't let you watch it ahead of time because I wanted your real-time reaction.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I laughed out loud in the gym when this happened. I had Vacation Vic send it to me and laughed out loud again when I was getting ready to put it in here.
Never gets tired.
I was dying at this clip, so take a look.
Yeah, I think for Canadian team, though, that's about to get into a new building. I think having a couple of home playoff games, having the revenue from that, having the excitement behind that. I
got to be realistic, though.
I do believe in it.
In the first round.
Yeah, but listen, again, the mentality is different in Canada. Just get in. It's different. Like, I think Calgary.
Well, that's why Canada hasn't won a fucking cup in 30 years.
Good is the enemy of great, Canada. Good is the enemy of great. Wow. How quick, man. Like, she's just like, You just like smoked the Americans, the Four Nations, like 7 days ago, and already like Laz is like roasting Canada. But backseat on Canada for a while. Backseat on Canada. Although I will say this. I think that everything, again, we just talked about to Max Bultman a second ago about the Detroit Red Wings. Like, what is it now with the new rink and no playoffs? 7 years? Brand new, gorgeous rink. If you've ever been there, it is beautiful. Downtown reinvigorated, some great restaurants, like all of it. It is awesome. And then middle of April, feathers. Nothing. No games. The Calgary Flames, the new rink. Now, again, this may be complicated by Trump tariffs. Who knows? But as of now, this is scheduled to open for the 27-28 season. Discuss amongst yourselves things like tariffs and supply chains. That's for smarter people like Ryan Pike to discuss, smarter people than me.
Yeah.
But I think that if you're the Calgary Flames, the plan should be, given where they're at right now, get this team ready for the opening of that building. Because the last thing you want is like 7 years of no playoffs in a brand new building.
Yeah.
Get this team ready for that 27-28 season.
I agree more with Laz on this one. Now he can piss off with the final Canada comment. I don't need to hear that. But I agree with him.
7 days
I
ago,
agree
we
with him.
smoked them.
Yeah. Like
7
come on,
days, already
relax.
forgotten it last. Jeez.
But no, I agree with him. Here is one thing I thought about as well when they were having the conversation, and then it was kind of prompted by you yesterday on the show about these teams who figure out how to bring the star player in at the right time.
Yeah.
Could Calgary be on the way to some of that? Like, it's not fully there, and it's not fully built itself in that spot, but let's say you time it for that rink. You can sell pieces here at this deadline and probably next deadline. We've all had the conversation about Kadri and Anderson.
Yeah.
I don't know if you maybe find a way, maybe not this year, next, the year after, whatever, for Huberdeau,
Weegar.
if you've decided to Mackenzie Weegar. Like, there's pieces here who are on the older side of this thing. You know who you've just gone and acquired? You've got Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee, and you're starting to get some prospects coming back up through. Could you find a way to kick this off and say, hey, we're out of here. We can't do it. We're just outside the playoffs as it is right now. Maybe this isn't for us this season. We can get ourselves another good pick. Maybe you pick 8 to 12. I don't know, like in that range where it feels like, hey, you're closer to the top. You can find another good player.
Yeah.
Develop some of those kids again, maybe bring some other guys back who are 23, 24, 25 with some of the picks that players that you're sending out and work your way towards that. And then maybe you get that superstar. Maybe you get the guy who comes in and is the over-the-top player who's maybe just better than Morgan Frost and better than Farabee and can push himself to that next tier. And then you can go hunt in free agency as well to insulate those players.
And we're getting close to it here, so maybe I can't help but thinking so much of Calgary's decisions are going to be dictated by how well Vancouver plays. So they win last night, right? Real nice goal by Connor Garland. Great play by Quinn Hughes to go down low, take a defender with him, and
Quinn
open
Hughes
up.
returns.
Quinn Hughes returns, and he's looking good. I'm not 100%. He's still
business.
better than like everybody else, Quinn Hughes.
Shitty
And
business.
nice goal. So they beat the Kings at Crypto.com. Very nice. Big game tonight against the Anaheim Ducks. I wonder how much of the decision-making of Craig Conroy is going to be dictated by these next couple of Vancouver Canucks games. And I do wonder, too, if Calgary is going to be that team that's like the Philadelphia Flyers last year. Remember, Philly was like, oh, man, the Philadelphia Flyers are going to make the playoffs. This is incredible. Like, what has John Tortorella done to these guys? You know, someone hand these guys Dixie cups. I don't believe that they're not all going to piss hot. This is incredible. And there was like, you going to make trades? No. Last minute, yes. Let's remember this is a rebuild. And bam, Danny Briere got to work on deals. Is Calgary going to be that team? Or, not to be, too Switzerland about this, taking both Colby and Laz's positions, maybe if you're this close, instead of adding, you just don't do anything. It's just like, this is the team that got us. This is some found money. Let's just see what happens. We're competitive. We're going to have competitive games. We're going to still be in the mix. It might be a little bit of a crawl here between us and Vancouver. But do we just
the only issue I have
not do
with
anything one way or another?
And then maybe this is just because I saw it, and I saw it growing up, so I experienced that a lot, was how many times did the Leafs finish 9-10? Just missed the playoffs.
Minnesota.
They were right
there. The Minnesota
Right.
spot. The Minnesota Wild
And then
spot.
what?
Always. Yeah.
And you're just going like this.
I know.
And you can't get anywhere. You can't get it that much better. Your picks aren't that great. The kids coming up through aren't unbelievable.
Yeah.
And you're just like, we're there. And I'm like, oh, we missed by a couple of points.
Sam Kinison.
Next year.
The great comedian Sam Kinison used to always say, if you're going to miss heaven, don't miss it by 2 inches. If you're going to miss, really miss. That's true of life, and that's true of hockey. You know, listen, there's some teams that do that. Like, you look at a junior team like the London Knights. Like, if they don't think they're going to win the OHL championship, they'll trade at deadline. They don't care. Just throw guys like, yeah, we're not good enough to win. It's like, we're either going to win the whole thing or we're just trading everybody. It's just one or the other. They are like the Sam Kinison team of the OHL. But that'll be a curious one. Like, I think there's a couple of teams. And again, like I said a second ago, the Jets and the Washington Capitals. If there are two teams here that you look at and say, you know what, they might win the Stanley Cup with a move or two here, but at the same time, you don't want to disrupt anything on these teams because they're going so great. It's probably those two teams. Like, if you're Cheveldayoff, just leave it. And you're letting Nick Ehlers walk away, fine, whatever. But we got a best shot we've had in a while at winning a Stanley Cup. The Washington Capitals, holy smokes, juggernaut they've become. You're Chris Patrick. What do you think? Why would you change anything? You know, all you want to do is like bubble wrap all your players, maybe add a depth defenseman, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
And then that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Games tonight, presented by our friends and partners at FanDuel. Proud to connect fans to the major sports moments that matter to them. Roster updates, as always, from our daily Faceoff fantasy Twitter/X feed. We got 12 games tonight. Now, I don't want to sound too hyperbolic about all of this, Zach, but is this Islanders-Bruins game? Is this the Islanders season right here? If they lose to the Boston Bruins, it puts them under 500. Is this the Islanders season? February 27th, tonight, TD Garden. If they lose, is that it? It feels like that to me, especially coming off that game against the Rangers. Again, this is based on nothing other than vibes. Feels that way to me. Islanders lose this one, it's over. You agree?
I agree. Do you think, though, that they... let me rephrase that. Do you think that Lou walks away saying, we lose tonight, it's over? I don't think so.
No.
It feels like he's clinging on, right?
It's not Lou's thing to retreat. It's just not. It's not Lou's...
Yeah.
No, it's not Lou's MO to retreat. The Lamoriello question is another one for a different show, but... That's never Lou's MO.
Yeah.
Having said that, you do wonder about Brock Nelson. Trent Frederick, by the way, week to week, there's still the expectation that he gets traded. I think it sounds like the Boston Bruins are asking for two pieces, player and pick, and how high that pick is, I think depends on the player. But I think it sounds like they're looking for two pieces for Trent Frederick. San Jose, the Sharkies, facing off against the Montreal Canadiens at the Bell Center. Josh Anderson, thankfully, is playing in this one. He returns. I mentioned CBJ in Detroit, facing off against one another at Little Caesars Arena. Calgary, Tampa at Amalie Arena. Dustin Wolf versus Andrei Vasilevsky, the master. When you snatch the pebble, grasshopper, only then may you leave the temple. That is a dated kung fu reference from a movie from the 70s. Snatch the pebble, grasshopper. When you snatch the pebble, then you may leave the temple. Bullets have won 6 in a row, Zach. Did you know that, Smarty Pants? They've won 6 games in a row.
Yep.
And they're good.
Tracking.
They're good again. Edmonton Oilers. Not good these days. Playing Amerant Bank Arena against the Florida Panthers. Skinner starts. Stuart Skinner. Skinner Jeff is in. Savoy Matt is out. Darnell Nurse day to day. Klingberg John with Kulak is one pair. Ekholm, Bouchard, Stetcher, Emberson. Man, that defense just all of a sudden looks so thin without Darnell Nurse in there, eh? When you remove him, all of a sudden I was like, oof. Ooh, geez.
I saw a tweet. I can't remember who put it out, being like, "Here's Oilers rushes, no Nurse," and I went, "Ugh."
You look at the
No.
man, oh man,
It's just lacking depth.
St. Louis and Washington. Ovechkin 12 goals away. Guys on Barn Burner had a great conversation about him. I go back and listen. I think it was on yesterday's show. Fantastic. Okay. Garver's Rhett was on fire. He doesn't even play hockey. Oh, yeah. I'm not doing it justice. I'm not even close to doing it justice, but go listen, go watch. It's fantastic. Hearing the boys talking about Ovechkin. So good.
Okay.
Buffalo, Carolina. We talked about Mikko Rantanen. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen starts for the Buffalo Sabres. Jason Zucker is a GTD with the LBI. In human terms, that means game time decision with the lower body injury. Philly and Pitt at PPG Paints Arena. Sammy Erston starts there. Michael Bunting appendix surgery. Tough one there. Winnipeg, Nashville. Jets just keep on rolling. Just keep on rolling, and as Luke Shen says, Nashville just can't find the back of the net. Every goalie has as we like to say, every goalie has an active chest when you're playing against the Nashville Predators. How come you guys couldn't score?
That logo in the middle.
Goalie had an active chest.
Yeah.
Kept feeding it right at him. Roman Josi day-to-day with the upper body injury. Not good there. Minnesota, Utah, Chicago, and Vegas. If you're a reporter worth his or her salt, no matter what happens tonight, who are you going to after the game in the Chicago dressing room? Zach, this is Hockey Media 101.
Where is Seth Jones?
Yes, right away after every game. Same questions as last time as well.
Yeah.
Just be a constant stream of the same question. Also, Vancouver, Anaheim. Vancouver beating the Kings in overtime yesterday. Lucas Dostal starts. I'll tell you what. You know what's really nice, and I should have mentioned this. Robbie Fabbri's on IR now with the I think it's an upper body injury for is it upper body?
I didn't see.
With Fabbri. I've always loved him. Always loved Robbie Fabbri. He's one of those guys that I've always pulled for, and I've always said to myself, if only this guy could keep the hospital bracelet off, he'd be so good because he's just like so skilled. You know what was really nice? You see the applause that he got in Detroit on the weekend? I loved it.
No, I
loved
that.
Loved it. They did this like really cool documentary series with Robbie Fabbri when he was with the Red Wings and coming back, rehabilitating injury and all that. And I remember just watching that and saying, like, if anyone's a great job by the Red Wings putting it together. If anybody's watching this, like, it's turning everybody into a Robbie Fabbri fan. Watching all the things that Robbie Fabbri has done over his career to get in the lineup. He's just one of those guys that automatically, when you see everything that he's put himself through to continue to play hockey, it's incredible. And the will this guy has. Like, you watch videos like that, you see docs like that, it's like he becomes, whether you're Anaheim Ducks fan in this case or back when he played with the Wings, like you become a fan of Robbie Fabbri right away. And those are your games.
You got to answer this question because
what
you were getting berated in the chat over
for
answering
what?
this, and now
someone was
I
saying
am
something
on
about
my
J-Rock.
Messages.
Everyone's going like, answer
J-Rock
J-Rock.
asked a question, and now everyone is sending it. So I'm just gonna read it because it's being copy and pasted, and
what
people
is
are saying,
it?
Answer the question. Do you want me to read it to you? I texted it to you as well, but I can read it.
Okay.
J-Rock said, "You've been doing this show for a couple of months now. Your previous shows were quite different. What about this format do you enjoy, and do you miss anything from those formats?"
From the formats? How much time do we have here? So my background, like I broke in 95. My background was radio. Like I grew up a radio fan. Like I listened to the radio. Some of my earliest memories, Zach, were Saturday nights I could watch all 3 periods of the hockey game, Hockey Night in Canada. But midweek, I could only watch 1, maybe 2, because I had school the next morning. But what my dad would always do is he would come into my room with a tiny little radio and put it under my pillow. so I could listen to the third period. Now, he would always be like, shh, don't tell mom, right? I think she knew, but, it's a shitty story because, like, my mom passed away when I was 16, and I never had a chance to ask her if she knew. Like, one of those things. I always wanted to ask, like, did you know Dad was doing that? I'm sure she did. But anyway, so I always grew up a radio guy. And so when I first broke in, like, I loved everything about radio. I love, like, production. Like, Zach, like, I'm going to sound like the old guy here, but, like, we would spend, the day before a show, hours just editing tape. And it was, like, reel to reel and chalk and razor blades and tape. Like, it was old school. I remember when they first introduced carts. We were like, holy shit, man, this is incredible. And now I watch the way you edit things, and I'm like, the old joke about, like, showing a dog a card trick. I feel like the dog. I'm like, how did you do that? Like, what the hell is that? So, like, that's what I broke in with, right? So my whole fascination growing up was always with radio. I always liked the idea of it's just your brain and the microphone. That's why I loved live and still do. It's just your brain and your microphone and go. And I love the discipline of doing something daily. Like when I got, I remember when I first left CBC and took the job at Sportsnet, and it was like I almost went to TSN. Well, I'll tell you that story down the road too. The position they offered me and how I almost ended up there. But I remember it was like, and it was mainly for television. It was a lot of junior hockey, a lot of regional games. And the one thing that I missed was I didn't have something to do every single day. And I don't know about you, Zach, or anyone in the chat, like I crave the discipline of doing something every single day. So I needed that. And I needed to do something like 5 days a week. I always liked Dan Carlin's line. Dan Carlin, to me, is the greatest podcaster that ever lived. Hardcore History is a must listen to for everybody. Whether you're interested in the topic, just the way that he approaches conversation, not even conversation, just the way that he approaches putting a podcast together and the way that he sounds and how engaging he is. But Dan Carlin used to do talk radio as well in San Diego. And his great line was always, I was a great radio host 3 days a week. The problem was I was on 5. And that was I always like that. That's a good one. He would always bring up the point that one of the things about podcasts is like you don't have to have that discipline of doing something every single day. Right? You can just do them when you feel, or you can do them like once a week. Like Elliot and I would do 2 podcasts a week. But I always loved doing something every single day, whether it was Leafs Lunch with Bill Waters, whether it was Hockey Night in Canada radio, whether it was Hockey Central. But I always had that craving to do something every single day. The nice thing about this position here now, other than there's no clock we have to adhere to, the show is almost 90 minutes right now, and I haven't fucking shut up. Like I'm still blathering on, right? Like I'm still blah blah blah. Marek, holy smokes! Like you're gonna run out of words
the chat
eventually.
Is so
here, guy.
Happy.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, chat's thrilled with this wonderful story. Long-winded way, J-Rock, of saying. The great thing about this position is it allows me to have satisfied the discipline of doing something every single day and also not be married to a specific format. Now, at the same time, I've always felt that frames are, while not as important as the art, they're still pretty important because it lets you know where art stops and life begins. And you're only going to be as good as the sort of frame that you put around what you do. Like where are the guide rails for what you do? So like we have a sort of an idea of what we want to do with our show. We color outside the lines every now and then. But the one thing that's really good about this place is, and I think I mentioned this when I first started here. The nice thing about this is, at the Nation Network at Daily Faceoff, we have a combination of people that have been in the industry for a long time, like me, okay? Harrison Price, Pinder and Boomer, like people that have been in the industry for a long time, that have been here for a while. And there's also a lot of younger people. And I remember what I was like when I was young, and I'll see them. I go like, yeah, you know what? I was like you. Like you wake up every single day as a young person in this industry, and like it's your whole life. Like it's everything. You wake up and it's like hockey, 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 hockey all day long. You like burn that passion. And it's like young people like you, Zach, like you're barely old enough to piss straight. But you wake up and, man, it's like hockey all day long. It's fantastic. And I remember being like that when I was younger. And I've worked at places where it's all people from my generation, or someone like me is like the young guy. I'm like, there's no way that a guy like me should be like the young guy at a shop. Like that to me, I would always say like, that's pretty unhealthy. You know, we need people that are in their 20s to keep it vibrant, to challenge your ideas, to make sure cement doesn't harden around anything that you do. So that's why I like it here. Like I look at Laz and Colby, like, fuck, those guys are going to be stars, right? And their careers, like they're just scratching the surface of how great they're going to be. And we got so many people here that are like that. And that's one of the reasons why I love being here. The format's loose. Everybody here pretty much says, do what you want to do, satisfy your audience and don't embarrass us. Essentially, I don't know what we could do here to embarrass our bosses, considering some of the things that I've already heard on there. Fuck, we put Alberga on the air every day. I had to get a shot at you there and there. Come on, you knew that one was coming. Anyway, so that's a long-winded way of saying that I really like the format of this because I get to scratch a lot of my itches. Does that make any sense, Zach?
Yes.
Did I do okay, Dad?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, the chat really liked that as well. And I'm going to say this wrong, but Ulrich Suter. Jeff,
Okay.
just keep on talking. So far, you still make sense. Brackets, most of the time.
Most of the time, yeah. No, I know.
Yeah.
Trust me. I'm getting older. You're gonna be like, okay, Grandpa. Zach's gonna be like, oh, God,
What was the
well,
word we were talking about
just,
before? What was the word, Jeff, that we were talking about?
You have it written down? I can't recall. That was like an hour and a half ago.
Anachronism.
Anachronism. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anachronism.
The word Vic sent me earlier. Anachronism.
Anachronism. You got to put the accent on the right syllable. You got to make sure you put the accent on the right syllable. Okay. Oh, J-Rock, great answer. Thanks, sir. J-Rock, do that one for you. The last 5 minutes of the show were for an audience of one. J-Rock in the chat. Thanks, bud.
No, the entire chat loved that one, and everybody very much wanted me to ask you that.
Okay. You got
Laz
it.
was copy and pasting the question. Vic was copy and pasting the question. I think Mr. Public Payne was copy and pasting it.
Hang on. How bored is Laz right now? Here's
I don't know.
Laz.
Do you see the poll in the chat right now? Should the sheet chat be a safe space for Laz?
Oh, I did. Yeah, I voted no. Yeah,
prison.
No. Prison rules. Yeah, no way.
Yeah.
A guy like him, like, give me a break. It's like the old line I said, like, Crack of Dawn's got to be careful around him. Young man, New York City.
Yeah. You're talking about he's got his date tonight. He's got a big date.
I know. We got to get the. It's too bad they're not on tomorrow. We could get the 555.
I know. I said we should
1212.
maybe get him on. Maybe we get him on at the end of the show. Burke finishes. Laz comes in. We get like a 5-minute recap. And
that always goes over well. Yeah, women like when you do that.
Yeah,
that's a really smart
very
move.
Very popular internet.
Just
show.
like you got to stop. Like we got to protect him from himself. No, Laz, you're not going to talk about this on any show. This is your father speaking, Laz. You're not going to do this on any show, dummy. Don't be like. Don't drive this in the ditch yet. You have plenty of time to take this car off the road. Don't do it in front of everybody. Go have a nice night. Be a gentleman. Make good decisions. Be respectful. And then shut up. As I was told early in my career.
I kiss him podcast.
Yeah, he does too. It's gonna make for great shows, pal. But like you're gonna be lonely. It's gonna be Laz party of one. Lazarus party of one. Your table is ready. Lazarus party of one.
Where is Lazarus? Search party of one.
Dufresne. Where are the Dufresnes? All right, now we're just evolving into Mitch Hedberg bits. All right, thanks.
We got to do one thing before you go, Jeff.
What do we got to do?
We got to tell people because we got to get it started now.
Okay,
yeah, sorry. We have to do this one.
I've used up a lot of words. Why don't you do this one?
Okay.
Why don't you land the plane?
Okay. With the trade deadline coming up next Friday, as everybody knows, right here on the Daily Faceoff channel, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 4-ish, as Jeff said earlier, which you should be subscribe, turning on notifications so you don't miss that. Mm-hmm. We wanted to do some trade deadline-themed content throughout the week and leading up to it. So we told you guys we now have this email, which is pinned there at the top of the live chat, thesheet@thenationnetwork.com. We want your trade proposals. We're going to do who says no, or whatever you want to put it as.
Yeah.
But Jeff's going to do a little special
Colton
thing
Davies
for you
did some
on
like
this
really
one.
nice animation for this one, right? That's
I
one of the
think
guys.
they've got some graphics and stuff for us
Okay.
for this. So it was Colton who was inspired and talked to me about it. And
Colton's one of
yeah,
those guys
so
that
we
when I
want
talk
you to
about like
submit
wakes up and burns like hockey every single day as a young guy, he's one of those guys that I think of.
Yeah. So submit your trade proposals
Okay.
to the sheet at thenationnetwork.com. And then Jeff, why don't you explain the second part of this and what we'll do through the next week?
So here's the thing. So I could share my thoughts on it. Zach could share his thoughts on it. It's about as exciting as a popcorn fart. Why don't we do this? Why don't I ask a manager about it? So submit your trade proposals, and I'll get feedback from, I should probably use a couple of different ones. I'll get feedback from a manager in the NHL. How about that? So you'll get it from someone who's actually like involved in things like trade deadline. Now the caveat will be that it wouldn't be from either the player either leaving or going to that person's team. How about that?
Right. Yep. I'm all in on that. I think this is going to be a lot of fun.
Essentially, it's a way for us to get someone else to do our work for us.
Yeah, not put ourselves in the hot seat when if things go really, really wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They won't be on freezing cold takes. Nope.
Yeah,
not ours.
Exactly. No. Anonymous GM or anonymous
Anonymous
manager.
manager, yeah, it says. Yeah. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's do it that way. Power of the phone.
Okay.
Anything
So
else,
email
or did we squeeze in an hour's show into an hour and a half?
Yeah, pretty much.
I use too many words. I swear, it's embarrassing. It's just too many. It's got to stop. Got to learn how to be economical again. TV chops, right?
The chat
really
was
fast,
very
quick
happy
and
about
punchy.
today.
Quick and punchy. Okay, one last question, Laz. Randy, you are so true. One last question. Thought I was bad at that.
Colby's in the chat there. He says, best poll question DFO has ever posted.
Not a safe space for your buddy, Colbs. Not a safe space for your buddy. All right, I'm off to listen to their show, and I hit the treadmill in my garage here. Okay, thanks to everyone for stopping by. Jean-Luc Grand-Pierre, analyst for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Thanks to Max Bultman, who covers the Detroit Red Wings for The Athletic, and always love hearing him in my ears when he hosts the podcast, The Athletic Hockey Show. And thanks to you for whether you're in the chat or you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, you're watching on YouTube, wherever you're consuming this show, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, wherever. Thanks for your attention. I know I've been blathering on a lot lately. I'll try to be more economical and respectful of your time. But in the meantime, thanks for hanging in there and sticking with me. Tomorrow is Brian Burke Day. So let's get ready to grumble. If you have any questions for Berkey, the email, the show is thesheet@thenationnetwork.com. We do have a couple of backed up, but we're just like too verbose today. We'll get some more emails in tomorrow. But if you have anything specific for Berkey, thesheet@thenationnetwork.com. Got it? Okay, adjourned. Enjoy the games tonight. We'll talk tomorrow. If you enjoyed that video, and we certainly hope that you do, please hit the subscribe button right there here at Daily Faceoff. I will put this lineup up against any hockey lineup anywhere. It all gets underway at 9 o'clock Eastern with Morning Cup of Hockey. That is Johnny Lazarus. That is Colby Cohen. Then at noon, it's DFO Live. And then 3 o'clock Eastern, The Sheet. Get caught up on everything in hockey.